LFFL Prime Time, the fastest 5 or so minutes in the LFFL universe. Your only officially licensed and dedicated show to the LFFL around. That is right. 32 years and going strong, our little engine that could. Let's start in that original league. We had Greg, the 2 point win over Eric. This went to Monday Night Football. Greg had an absolute nobody at tight end. Eric had Ramondre Stevenson, came up just 2 points short of Greg. Greg moves to 6-1, sitting atop the standings. Bill, a close 3 point win over Todd. Matt, a high scoring affair, but simply a 10 point win over Miles. And in your two blowouts of the week, Andy's able to take care of Phil, and Josh was able to take care of myself. So looking at those standings, as I told you, Greg, 6-1. It's all alone by himself with my loss. I'm down to 5-2. Andy, Josh, Todd, Matt, all at 4-3, tied for those final playoff positions. Bill, Eric, just a game back of playoff positions at 3-4. Miles and Phil at 1-6. Need to get things going. We are halfway through the regular season, right? We're playing 14 regular season games. We've played 7. Certainly, Miles and Phil not dead yet. Still time to get back in this race. Week 8, looking ahead. We have a lot of games that between teams that don't play each other a lot. Greg taking on Matt. Greg, the 16-11 advantage in that series. Josh taking on Phil. Josh, the 13-9 lead in that series. Andy taking on Miles in a battle of my brother versus my brother-in-law. Miles carries the day in this one, 2-1. Bill taking on Eric, 14-11 lead for Bill in the series, but the marquee matchup of the week is this one right here. Todd versus myself. Of course, this is a rematch of the last 2 Super Bowls. I was able to beat Todd 2 years ago in the Super Bowl. Todd came back and whooped me last year in the Super Bowl. I do hold a traditional 35-28 lead in the series, but look, we have played each other crazy amounts of times over the years. We have met in 4 of the last 11 Super Bowls, 2-2 in those games. We have met a record 10 times in the playoffs. It's even 5-5 split for both of us. And look, don't think I've forgotten about those basketball games in high school. I am still grinding over the fact that I couldn't beat Todd in any one of the 4 finals in fantasy basketball in high school. So look, this is the marquee matchup, one for the ages. I'm sure it'll be another thriller between Todd and I this week. LFFL2, week 7. Eric beats the Merrills. Bill beats Miles. Phil beats Todd. Sean beats Greg by just 3 points. And I was able to squeeze out a win over my brother. In the standings, Eric and Bill sit at the top at 6-1. Phil and the Merrills at 5-2. I'm hanging tight at 4-3. Miles is hanging there at 3-4. Sean and Todd at 2-5. Greg and Andy 1-6. As I told you on the What to Watch For show, we're really starting to see the separation. The question is, as we enter the second part of this league here, can one of these kind of bottom, I'm going to include myself in this, one of these bottom 6 teams make a real move up towards the top, or is it going to be an Eric, Bill, Phil, or Merrill's show? We'll see. Week 8, Eric versus Bill. Someone has to lose. Merrill's versus Todd. Miles versus Sean. Andy versus Greg. And I got a chance to make my move with the game against Phil this week. LFFL 3, Matt Merrill drops a game for the first time all season. He loses to drop to 6-1, a big loss to Sean this week. Phil beats Matt Brennan. Eric, a big win over Greg. Miles beats Andy. Nate and Todd, that is legit the final score. Maybe you two should check your rosters from time to time. And I was able to beat Bill 113-85. So Matt Merrill drops down into a tie for first with Phil. Got Sean and Bill sitting strong at 5-2. And then we have a big gaggle of teams tied for these final playoff spots. Greg, myself, Miles, Matt Brennan, Eric, Nate, all at 3-4 and kind of in the mix for these playoff positions. Andy just a game out of the playoffs at 2-5, even though he's in 11th place. Todd hasn't got it going yet. 0-7. Week 8, Matt Merrill taking on Bill in a battle of 2 of the top teams. Phil taking on Eric. Matt Brennan taking on Greg. Miles taking on Todd. Nate taking on Andy. And I get a chance to beat, again, a team above me in the standings in this league. Happy to take on Sean this week. DK, look at Eric Warner, 199.14 points. This is the 12th highest score in the history of our DraftKings league. It is Eric's 13th career win, and it's Eric's 3rd top 2 finish in the last 4 weeks. So Eric, on a real hot streak right now. If you look at the standings, it has bumped him all the way up to 3rd. Very impressive. I was able to take home 2nd this week with 150.72. Nate takes the bronze position very, very closely over Phil. Looking at your Monday Night Football lineup down here, GC Bear, who I believe we've decided is somebody Andy knows here, but I've still haven't figured out who that is. I was able to come in 2nd in Monday Night Football to go with my 2nd in the main slate as well. Your standings, Nate, still a dominant lead, 54 points on the season. Greg coming in at 43 in 2nd. Eric, as I say, moved up to 3rd with 41. Still no one out of this one. We know this can change rapidly and in a hurry, so keep setting those lineups. LFFL 5, Week 7, Eric, the win over Andy. Phil, Greg, Bill, and myself also winners. This, again, we got separation in this league too. Myself, Eric, Phil, and Greg, your 4 teams really in strong playoff position right now. Sean, Miles at 3-4, the next closest. Andy, Bill, Todd at 2-5. Still time to get back in this thing. Nate at 1-6. Week 8, Eric taking on Miles, Phil taking on Bill, Greg taking on Sean, Nate taking on Andy, and Todd is taking on myself. Looking at your LFFL 6, we have a big move here made by Matt Merrill. Last week, he went from 6th up to 3rd, finishes the job, gets all the way up to 1st. He changed places in 2 different months. He took the lead in June and he took the lead in March. The March one was awesome. Put up 158 points to jump ahead of me in March. Well done there, Matt. He moves to 4.9, just ahead of Andy's 5.0 and Greg's 5.1. So right now we got 3 teams in the mix at the top, kind of closely jumbled together. Miles is in 4th, I'm in 5th. Eric 6th, Phil in 7th. I want to highlight Phil's 182.54 points in April, the highest single game this year, and the 15th highest scoring game of all time. Elimination was Bill Berardi. No real dispute here. He was about 30 points short of moving on. Still alive, Miles, Phil, Josh, Jeremy, Matt Merrill, Nate, Andy, and Matt Brennan has been in last in the standings for weeks, but keeps surviving and advancing, a strategy Todd used a couple years ago to get all the way to the final. Looking at your LFFL 8, I continue to lead over Matt Brennan, but he has closed in on me here. Phil has also tightened this thing up in 3rd. And then finally, your Sweet 16, we have some teams moving on. We had 2 close ones. The number 1 seed, I was threatening to get upset by my brother. Luckily, I held him off after I made my Patriots move. He did the same thing, went and tried to block me and picked up the Patriots. Came up short with his tight end, Hunter Henry. Couldn't get him over the finish line. Number 8, Nate moves on over number 9, Eric. Number 5, Bill moves on over number 1, Greg. But our first big upset, number 4, Jeremy goes down to number 13, Phil. That's right. The defending champion, 669 points after a mediocre regular season, qualifying round, whatever you want to call it. Awesome. I'm not sure I want any part of Phil right now. Good luck, Bill. Number 3, Casey moves on over Jeremy. We have another upset. Number 11, Todd, a 2-point win over number 6, Eric. Hard luck for Eric here. Big number, big time score, but unfortunately just played the wrong team on the wrong day. Todd moves on with the 11-6 upset. And number 10, Miles, able to upset Nate as well by 10 points only. He will move on to meet number 2, Greg, who was easily able to dispatch of his brother. Now, remember, we are going to have the, I'm sorry, I didn't put the bracket in here. The 1 is facing the 8. I'm facing Nate. The 5 is facing the 13, Bill versus Phil. The 3 is facing 11, me versus Todd. And the 10 is facing the 2, Greg versus Miles. Your Elite 8 runs, weeks 8 through 10, you are allowed another roster move during this round. So if you would like to make a roster move, you can. If you want to make it next week, you can make it next week. Make it whenever you like. There is 1 roster move allowed for weeks 8 through 10. So that's all I got for you this week. Thank you so much for watching. Good luck to you all this week. I wish you success, although I'm not so sure I wish Todd success because I'm getting tired of losing to Todd all the time. Good luck, everybody.